we take another 10,000 kilometers distance from Canada to New Delhi. So let's go and sit there. And I have a special friend this morning here to share her views and perspective. She published a chapter in our book. Dr. Mousumi Mukherjee is associate professor and a deputy director of International IIHED Center. And also she's the country director of the Star Scholars, now vice president. And also congratulations, Professor Mukherjee, for successfully hosting Star Global Conference with at OP Jindal Global University. So we'd like to hear your short presentation on the very topic of student experience during COVID-19. Over to you, Dr. Mukherjee.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Krishna Bista. And it's great to be here at this webinar virtually with all of you. And thank you to Morgan State University for organizing this webinar series. I have been listening very carefully to the earlier presenters, though the previous presenter was speaking from Canada, but as I understand, the empirical work is from Nigeria, which is a very similar country context in many ways, similar to India. Quite interestingly, both were British colonies at one point of time, and has a major English-speaking, though we are multilingual, but we have a major English-speaking population and institutions in this country. And as the previous speaker, Samuel, was speaking from Canada, I could see so many parallels, with the context of online teaching and learning. Krishna, can we move the slide, please? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let me share with you all a little bit about the sample of the study. This was back actually in spring 2020, the first semester when around the world, all of us, we kind of came to a halt. Our regular spring semester started within a month after we had classes, month and a half of classes. Around mid-March, we got this announcement. There was such this sudden countrywide lockdown. Everything, all campuses were shut down. And I personally, I work in a residential university campus, which is a very privileged institute within the larger Indian context. It's a very well-resourced. It's one of the top universities right now within India, which also comes up in global rankings and all. So it's a comparatively, even within a very low resource, developing country context. It's a privileged context from which I'm speaking here, frankly speaking. And it's a residential university campus, 100% residential university campus. So all students had to be sent back home. Immediately, faculty also got scattered and remote teaching started after almost a month and a half of a complete lockdown, sometime in the middle of the spring semester. And the semester continued on all the way to summer, almost, end of May, June. It continued till June. So after the semester ended, I, along with a couple of my colleagues here, we thought that this is absolutely an unprecedented experience for all of us. Now, though our university was already, as I said, it's one of the top universities in India right now, and a much more well-resourced kind of institution. So we were already operating and offering online courses even prior to the pandemic, and online degree programs. So we did have some expertise and experience prior to the pandemic, but despite these, as you all know, 100% transition to online teaching and learning was a very challenging experience across the university. So we thought of running like a small sample study at the university itself. And since all the three of us were also coming from very different teaching background, and one of the course was designed as to be run as an online course even prior to the pandemic. The other two courses from were transitioned into online teaching and learning mode under this emergency. So we had a sample of around 106 students who took the survey we conducted after the end of the spring 2020 semester. 44 of them were undergraduate students, 42 were doctoral students, and 10 were master's students. Somehow fewer master students took the survey. We don't know the reason why. And based on this, survey that we conducted internally across these students, I'm going to share with you some of our findings. But before I share with you some of our findings from this survey with regards to students' experience of online transition to teaching and learning, I want to share with you a framework that we drew from Canadian scholar. Krishna, could we move to the next slide, please? If you, this community of inquiry framework. Now, there is a context, of course, why we drew this framework from Garrison's work, who's an expert in online teaching and learning, Canadian scholar, is because our university also very much focuses on experiential learning pedagogy and learning by doing, and we have a strong focus also on community engagement. And drawing on this community of inquiry framework from Garrison, we analyzed the data that we gathered from our the student survey. And as you all can see, that in terms of creating a community of inquiry for holistic teaching and learning experience within an online framework, learning framework, it's very, very important to have a strong engagement on all the three domains with regards to the teacher's teaching presence, social presence in terms of social interactions with the students, and also cognitive presence. Now, this is, of course, under normal circumstances of online teaching and learning, right? But what we were doing, we were trying to do, we were transitioning into online teaching and learning within a very emergency kind of context, very stressful compared to now, spring 2022. The levels of stress, anxiety, uncertainty was even much higher. And the vulnerabilities were much higher 2 years ago. So all these aspects that are critical to engagement with the content, engagement with goals and objectives, the course, engagement with the other participants, they were all in a flux at that moment of time when we were trying to do this emergency remote transition into teaching and learning. So this is what has actually really impacted in a big way the teaching and learning experiences, not just the physical infrastructural limitations within a larger Indian context, but as I said to you, within the larger Indian context, our institution and the background from which the students come here are comparatively more privileged. But even then, their experience of online teaching and learning was deeply impacted because of the flux within which they were all embedded. The levels of stress and anxiety and uncertainty and vulnerability within which they were having to operate, both the teachers and the students. Okay, so the educational experience, we kind of found mixed response of positive and negative experiences, but mostly, you know, the educational experience that by and large was deeply impacted because of the environment around. And let's move to the next slide quickly, Krishna. I'm almost done. I'm waiting now. to quickly wrap up. So in terms of experiences of students, what we found, the big thing that was really missing is interactivity in the face-to-face learning environment for students. And as I shared, though most of our students had access to computers and gadgets and all these things at home, connections were available, but still within the larger Indian context, internet connectivity, the speed goes up and down. And also something the previous presenter Samuel was mentioning is a problem in Nigeria. We share the same problem, is also power supply, electricity could be very disruptive. Within the residential university campus, we have very good power backup system because it's a well-resourced institution and we have a lot of IT support. So the fluctuations of internet and all these things is not so much. So the university really provides a more equalizing kind of resource space for students coming from different backgrounds. Though we are a privileged university, we do have around 50% of our students on scholarships coming from not so privileged backgrounds. So thereby, the university campus itself provides a more equalizing space of resources for students coming from diverse backgrounds. But when they went back home, many of the students found these things challenging. And also adult learners, say for example doctoral students, many of them who have issues like they have to take care of elderly at home and those who have little children. So to share teaching and learning space at home where you have to take care of elderly people and also childcare and all these things became quite challenging for many of the students as also the teachers within the context. So our study over and all, as I would say, demonstrated that even within the context of a more well-resourced, privileged background context within the pandemic, students did experience massive disruption to their learning process, during the spring 2020 semester. And of course, our online classes are, this semester also, we were supposed to have face-to-face classes once again because of Omicron. Again, we are beginning in an online mode, hoping that we will slowly, phase by phase, come back to campus, but we don't know, maybe this entire semester will again go online. Well, that's all I had to share with all of you with regards to findings and study from India. I'm looking forward to hear questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. Appreciate it.